Well, good evening. It's Sunday night, the first full day of NFL football. So, what better thing to be doing than preparing for the Giants game? And notice I said the Giants game, not the Cowboys game, for us to talk about the last week in sport economics and what went on. Uh, First, foremost, let me apologize for the lateness in grading of the discussion boards, the little technical problem I was having, probably some operator error too. So, uh, trust me, that won't happen again. It shouldn't take that long. It's not fair to ask you to wait that long, and I just want to let you know that we'll do our best to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. I think you'll see that everybody got fairly individualized comment. The grades in the discussion board in the first week do tend to be rather high. The big deal here is participation and getting involved and getting used to the format. And the expectations, as I mentioned to many of you, do go up in the coming weeks. And looking back on what happened in week 2 anyway, without even the benefit of that feedback, it looked like that happened. That was one of the better discussion boards I've read in a long time. I want to thank everybody for their participation. Pat myself on the back a little bit, and I guess my questions worked. And you can see that when that happens, there's really no need for me to get in the middle of it and muddy things up. You guys were doing a great job of discussing things yourselves. And I think you could see where just talking about the idea of separating the idea of the sport from the business side makes a difference in how you look at it. It got some emotions flowing. It got some brainwaves moving, and it's an age-old question. A couple of you actually called it a loaded question, and it was intended to be that way. We really wonder what we want to do. Is it the product that drives the profitability? Is it the management that drives the profitability? Is it the product on the field? Is it the way you run the business? What is your business goal? All those things came into play, didn't they? And we can see how some business decisions that are sometimes not that fan-friendly, and a couple of you actually mentioned some, that you kind of scratched your head as a fan and say why you were doing it, and then a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, maybe even a year later, say, oh, now I know why the franchise did that. Why did the team do that? Very, very interesting, I think, topic in there. It's always going to be sensitive. There's always going to be factors around it that maybe not everyone understands. And this is where the point I was trying to make early on, that sport is sometimes different. We just don't think straight when it comes to sport. And it really is a difficult issue. Okay, this week, where are we going? Where are we going with that? Well, this week's maybe not as much fun, but I think maybe a little more complicated. But one term you may have heard on and off for a long time when dealing with sports is this whole idea of antitrust law. What does antitrust mean? It actually means monopolies. It has to do with monopolies. Monopoly, as you remember, is a single unit, a single business controlling a marketplace. And very early in its history, as the text will tell you, actually, Major League Baseball was the first one that was granted an antitrust exemption because, in fact, I think the justices at the time in the Congress declared it not to be so much a business, but as a public exhibition, I think is the term. Maybe I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Classified as being something different than a normal business, and therefore not subject to the same regulations and the same laws as normal businesses. So that was a very interesting thing, and sport has operated under those not restrictions, but less than restrictions for a long time. So in recent years, we've seen things. We've seen a lot of labor difficulties in sports. We've seen the lockouts in the NFL and the NBA. Hockey almost lost its season last year. You've seen different business models come in. MLS tried, for instance, when it was started, Major League Soccer was a single entity where actually the league owned all the franchises and the individual teams were under the control of owner-operators, but they were literally like franchised businesses in, let's say you were running a McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken or something like that. A little different. So now what I'm going to show you this week is how it fits into labor laws and other business regulation laws. And you'll see we have a couple of kind of long, kind of involved articles, but I would like you to read them before you get into the discussion. And by reading them, I think one of the more interesting ones, make sure you read this one before you try to tackle the discussion question. A few years ago, I think about 3 years ago, there was a lawsuit filed by a company, a clothing manufacturer, against the NFL because the NFL gives out an exclusive contract to generally one of the big apparel shoe manufacturers to manufacture all its uniforms for all the teams, all the coaches' attire for all the teams. And at the time that the suit was filed, Reebok was the on-field supplier for the NFL. That contract is now with Nike. And if you turn on your TV this evening or tomorrow night or next week's games, you're going to see every player in a Nike uniform, every coach in a Nike polo shirt. Nike's got the contract. And this company argued that that was restraint of trade. So read that article, read the others about antitrust, because it's a key issue. It's almost a foundation issue in how sports are run and how sports are different from the rest of the normal marketplace. Then go ahead and tackle the discussion board and do it just as well as you did last week. The whole idea, remember, with the discussion board is the earlier you can post, the more you're going to be able to participate and share in the ideas with others. And again, one of the reasons I apologize for getting in late myself was I think it didn't give people the advantage of that advice. But the fact is, if you wait till Sunday night, then it's probably only me that's going to be reading it. Not a good thing, okay? You need to be in there. I think I said in the syllabus by Thursday. By Wednesday would be really good if you can do that. And I know it's not always possible, but I want people to be in there early. The earlier you can. Remember, you've got to respond to a couple other people, and that your first posting has got to be an entry of some substance, giving some considered opinion and your reasons for that opinion, your reasons for making that statement, and then engage in a conversation with other folks. I was really gratified in one post in particular where somebody said, I'm getting what I wanted out of this course. I love to hear that. It's great. Thank you. And I hope we can continue that for everybody. Okay, so that's the kind of quick review of the last week, quick peek at what's coming up. Let's keep up the momentum we've built, and I'm looking forward to continuing on through the rest of the course. Thanks again.